in this lesson, I'm going to talk about what Barry Harris called the family of related dominant sevenths. In previous videos, I've explained how a diminished seventh chord on the leading note, that's the seventh note of a scale. So for instance, in the key of C major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we make a diminished seventh chord on that note, it can function as a dominant seventh. It's like a G7 with a flattened ninth, but just without the root. And it resolves in exactly the same way, usually to chord 1 or to chord 6. Barry Harris made the observation that if you lower the bottom note of the diminished seventh chord by 1 semitone, you get a dominant seventh chord, in this case a B flat 7 chord. Now let's look at the diminished seventh chord in inversions. Let's take the B up to there. And now lower the lowest note by 1 semitone, and we get a D flat 7. Let's look at the next inversion. Lower the F by 1 semitone, and we get an E7. So what Barry Harris said was that the G7, B flat 7, D flat 7, and E7 are all related dominant seventh chords. Now what's interesting to note just there is that if we look at all the notes that have been lowered by a semitone, we actually get another diminished seventh chord. So we've got B diminished seventh chord. If we lower all the notes by a semitone, then obviously we're going to get another diminished seventh chord. And when you combine those notes together, you end up with the diminished scale. And I've talked about that in previous videos. So let's look at how we can apply this concept of a family of related dominant sevenths. In a moment, I'm going to talk about what I did in the intro. But first of all, I just want to do a quick reminder on the concept of drop 2 voicings. If we take each position of a diminished seventh chord, so root position, first inversion, and so on, and in each case, take the next to the top note out and put it an octave lower, then we get this sound. You hear that kind of voicing a lot in classical music, and we call that a drop 2 voicing. Now what I did in the intro was to play those drop 2 voicings, but in each case the next to the top note was preceded with an upper appoggiatura taken from the diminished scale. So let's look at the first position. Instead of playing D there straight away, I played the next note up from the diminished scale, which was E. And you get that lovely tense sound, which resolves. In the next voicing, instead of going straight to F there, I played the next note up from the diminished scale, G. And again, you get that tension. Same thing just here. Instead of playing the A flat, I played B flat. And just here, instead of playing the B there, I played D flat. Now, if you look at those chords again, let's look at the first bit. Take the F out for a moment. That's just an E major triad going to the 7th. And you can actually, if you put that F, if we sort of juggle the notes around, you would actually end up with an E7 with F, the flattened 9th. If you look at the next chord, again, take that one out. That's just a G major triad going to the 7th. And the A flat, once again, you can think of it as G7 with a flattened 9th. Same thing just here. Take that out, you've got B flat going to B flat 7. Put that up at the top and you've got the flattened 9th just here. Take that out, D flat triad going to D flat 7. Now, if you look at this from a traditional functional harmony point of view, though, you wouldn't actually be thinking about those upper appoggiaturas as coming from a diminished scale. You would simply thinking of them as 4 dominant 7th chords and the upper appoggiaturas in each case come from the key that you're in at that point. You can play those chords without the resolution and get a very tense sound like this. And of course you can come down with them instead of going up. They give a very ambiguous kind of sound because you don't quite feel what key you're in until you get to the resolution at the end. Now let's try putting the upper appoggiatura above the top note of each drop 2 voicing. That would sound like this. Now, as well as being able to create some very contemporary sounding chord voicings on the diminished 7th chords, and also using this concept of the related dominant 7ths to create movement, it also means that we can go to different places when we're on a diminished 7th chord, and it means it can be a great chord to use when modulating. So if one diminished 7th chord can function as 4 dominant 7ths, that can function as G7, B flat 7, D flat 7 or E7, it means of course that it can take us to 4 different tonics. So for instance, if we were in the key of C and we would say play chord 6, going to chord 2, going to chord 5, but putting that note in. Now, at that point, really, you would be thinking of that as the flat 9. But then if you thought of that as E7 with a flat 9, that could take you to A major. So I'll play that again. So it opens up all kinds of possibilities. Hope you found this useful. If you did and you haven't done so far, I'd be really grateful if you would give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And I always welcome any comments or questions that you may have. Thank you. See you in the next video.